Okay, I got to slide my camera over.
All righty. Good morning, Housing Authority Board of Directors. Over to you, Director Harrington.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the August 6th, 2024 Washington County Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting. Clerk Moss, could you do us the honors?
Certainly, Director Harrington. The Washington County Board of Commissioners is now meeting as the Housing Authority Board of Directors for this regular session, August 6, 2024. Director Savara?
Here.
Director Willie?
Here.
Director Treese?
Here.
Director Fye?
Present.
Director Harrington?
Here.
I'll announce Director Rogers is excused and Director Roper is at a work conflict.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, board members, for being here. We have a pretty straightforward agenda for today. The next item is public communication. This is an opportunity for members of our community to come and share their thoughts with us, the Housing Authority Board of Directors, for up to 2 minutes an individual. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to do so?
I did not see anyone who especially signed up for the Housing Authority at this session. Would any member in the auditorium wish to provide comment for up to 2 minutes to the Housing Authority Board of Directors? Not seeing any raised hands. Anyone coming forward? Would anyone online via Zoom wish to provide public comment to the Housing Authority? As you've heard the opening for up to 2 minutes, give you just a moment to utilize raise hand function. Not seeing any hands. Director Harrington.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Next, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Today's consent agenda consists of approval of the minutes for June 18th, 2024, our most recent meeting. What are the wishes of the board regarding today's consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you, directors. To approve today's consent agenda, all those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries 5-0. Next, we have a presentation. I would like to welcome our Executive Director of the Housing Authority of Washington County and her appropriate team members up to the table to provide us with an update on community engagement by our Department of Housing Services. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Board of Directors. Good morning. My name is Molly Rogers, and I am the Executive Director of the Housing Authority of Washington County, and I use she, her pronouns. This is a momentous day, actually. With me, I have two of our assistant directors, one for the Housing Authority, Jill Chen, and the other for Homeless Services, Jess Larson. And today we represent the whole department as we embark on two transformative initiatives meant to integrate our two sides of our house. The first is a commitment to engage with community in a deeper and more intentional way to help shape our policies. And the second is the unveiling of our new strategic framework, including new vision, mission, and equity statements. Both of these initiatives were established as part of our department's work plan for fiscal year 24-25. So the three of us are excited to share with you how we are evolving and expanding our department's vision and values to capture our growth in more complex business lines that this board has already overseen over the last several years. And to be clear, this transformation was taking place well before I came to the county. But this team has been working with the community, a consultant, our advisory bodies, our Office of Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement, and our staff to put words and a framing to this new vision. This work has been guided by the principles of racial equity, and to be held accountable along those lines, we have forged a close partnership with the Office of Community Engagement, or Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement, otherwise known as OEICE, under the incredible leadership of Dora Perry and now Amanda Garcia Snell this past year. I'd like to elevate a few people before we get into this work. They've been instrumental in our community work. First of all, Bieneth Valdez, right there, working in our housing services engagement and advisory bodies. Nadia Mohammed, not here today, our Homeless Services Advisory Body, Valentina Barrett, our housing homeless engagement work, and of course, a lot of this work has been co-led by our AD, Jess Larson, Melissa Sansala, and Nicole Sting. So big shout out. We could not have done this work with all of our various partners. Next slide.
All right. Good morning, Board of Directors. My name is Jess Larson. I use she and her pronouns for the record, and I am your Assistant Director overseeing the Homeless Services, but pleased to be here with the Housing Authority Board of Directors sharing in this presentation with my colleagues. And so we begin with one of the elements of expanding our work in partnership with the community and gathering feedback from people with lived experiences. And one element of that work includes our new resident advisory board. This work is conducted in coordination with the Housing Authority business lines and is an element newly required by HUD as our role as a housing authority. We will have between 5 and 15 board members. I believe we have 5 right now, and have just completed a recruitment to add additional 7 community members. And these community members, the members of the advisory board, bring their experience and expertise of tenants in our public housing or recipients of our rent assistance programs. And so they help to advise us in critical policy initiatives, especially like our moving to work initiatives and other bodies of work like our annual work plan that help to inform our housing authority activities. And it's worth noting that the folks will bring, in addition to being members of our buildings or tenants of our buildings or recipients of rent assistance, they are also broadly representing the communities we serve. There are seniors, people with disabling conditions, families with children, and I understand that 80% of the members so far come from identifying with communities who've historically been marginalized. So real important diverse representation to help inform our work as a housing authority. Next slide, please. An additional expansion of our engagement work. You've heard much about our launch of our new Homeless Solutions Advisory Council. Their work is well underway. There's a wonderful picture of them there. They meet monthly, and their work is collapsing all of our funding sources that create our dynamic system of care as a homeless services agency. So they oversee our investments through federal funds, through the Continuum of Care, state funds, through the EO and other OHCS-funded programs, and of course the regional and local funds that contribute to this much more significant homeless system of response. And they do so in partnership with 5 technical subcommittees. Next slide, please. Those subcommittees include, I want to importantly point out, the Lived Experience Advisory Committee. So another place where we have community members who come from the experience of having experienced housing instability or homelessness, who are helping to advise on our investments in our homeless services work. And so these committees, including the Lived Experience Advisory Committee, as well as an equitable procurement subcommittee, an HMIS, the group that will advise us on our data system, performance evaluation, the committee that will look at the performance of our programs and how they are achieving the outcomes expected in our system, and helping to make important policy and investment decisions to improve the performance of our system. And then, of course, one element of performance is our coordinated entry or community connect. So some of these are required technical subcommittees with our HUD or other funding work, and some of them are best practices in how to advise on our work globally. And yes, Commissioner, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Were these a part of the recommendation that came from HUD to go to 5 to 15 members? Were these committees also a recommendation from them?
Excellent question. So we have 2 kind of ways in which our department, maybe more than 2, relates to HUD. First, as a housing authority. And so in our work as a housing authority in the previous slide, HUD recommended that we convene an advisory board of members of our programs. Now, also in the way we relate to HUD is through our work as a continuum of care authority in our homeless services work. And in that work, they also are advising that we engage people with lived experience to advise our program. So we now have 2 different bodies that are engaging and informing our work with their lived experiences. And the team is really wisely integrating their work so that they are communicating with one another as well. So 2 separate bodies, both recommended by HUD for different bodies of our business lines of our department, but working together to bring that lived experience to bear and advising all of our collective department work.
Yeah, so I guess, and maybe, I apologize, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but to go to 5 for 15, to actually you're adding, so 5 to 12, that's a pretty significant step. And then adding these other subcommittee groups, it'll be interesting to me, you don't have to do it today. How does all of that come together as kind of a communication coordination? Because it seems like you got a lot of pieces there.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Could we
sorry.
please hold questions till later, because there are improvements needed for all of this in terms of the connection, so.
Great. We'll look forward to coming back to those questions. So these are the technical subcommittees that feed up to the Parent Homeless Solutions Advisory Council that oversees our homeless services work and helps to advise staff and our boards in overseeing that work. Next slide, please. And here I pass it off to my colleague Jill to take us to another tried and true advisory body.
Thank you, Jess, and thank you, Board, for this opportunity to present to you about our engagement. For the record, I'm Jill Chen, Assistant Director of Housing Services in the Department of Housing Services and Housing Authority of Washington County, and I use she, her pronouns. The last advisory committee we want to highlight is our Housing Advisory Committee. This is another committee that focuses on the work of our Housing Authority. The committee consists of 15 members who meet once a month to discuss programs and services for our low-income residents in Washington County. Similarly, members bring a variety of experiences related to housing, including as low-income resident, community-based organizations, funding partners, equity and investors and lenders, and from the construction architectural field. They review the department's annual plans and annual budgets, and also weigh in on housing policies and priorities, new developments, and affordable housing concepts. Next slide, please. This year, we are expanding our community outreach engagement with listening sessions for our partners, the people we serve, and the general community. The first scheduled meeting is with provider and partner listening session scheduled for tomorrow, Wednesday, August the 7th at 8:30 in the morning. The meeting will be held virtually, and we have invited service partners, community providers, and community-based organizations and faith-based organizations. Our advisory bodies will be on hand to both contribute and hear from these partners. And of course, you guys are also welcome. Conversations will focus on learning about the county's strategic framework, which guides the work of the Housing Authority, and learn and hear feedback from local service providers and organizations. Their feedback will guide us in our internal planning for budgets and work planning, and determine budget priorities, and create a more effective Washington County housing system. Our second listening session is the community listening session scheduled for Monday, August 19th at 5 p.m. This will be an in-person event held at the Beaverton County Library. We are welcoming the general community with targeted outreach for low-income households, especially those with lived experience, and have those who have accessed our programs. Members of our Housing Advisory Committee and Homeless Solutions Council will join the conversation and help facilitate the breakout tables and feedback. We're hoping to learn more about the community views on what services and resources they feel are most important to folks to be stably housed and how we can improve those services. Next slide, please. Last on our upcoming events list is our annual housing forum. This is to be held, scheduled on Friday, November 22nd at the Wingspan Event and Conference Center. That annual housing forum is our opportunity to bring together experts from our community to talk about their perspectives in housing, the need for our community, and innovative solutions. Our invite list is one that includes locally elected officials, such as yourselves, community leaders, service provider partners, and other Washington County departments, as well as our advisory bodies. In the past, this event was hosted by our Housing Advisory Committee. Moving forward, it will be a jointly effort with our Housing Advisory Committee and our Homeless Solution Council, recognizing the work covers the continuum of our housing needs. Next slide, please. In addition to the planned events, as well as the regular meetings, we're also planning 2 surveys before the end of this year. The first one was a community survey that asked participants to weigh in our budget priorities. This was already done in ahead of developing our fall fiscal year 24-25 budget. The second is a resident and participant survey to folks living in our housing and receiving rental assistance. The information we collect is still being developed, but the goal is to learn more for our residents and participants about what their priorities are and how they feel to best serve them. We will also gather information about the preferred ways to communicate with them and what opportunities they might be interested in participating in. And with that, I turn it to you, Molly.
A lot of this work has really enhanced our communications and engagement strategy to really have an improved focus. It's been a priority, particularly for me as well. And I wanted to highlight a few of the high-level communication strategies we've used this past year. First of all, we're actually in the very early stage. We're going to be overhauling our website. It's been a long time in the coming. Thank you. We're working with IT. We've got some mock-ups.
Chair is excited.
We need it to be more user-friendly and also be more clear of how to navigate down deeper into what kind of services people need. Especially as we've expanded different lines, it gives us an opportunity to think about programs, not just go to homeless services here. We're actually looking at, okay, all shelters here, all different types of housing resources there in a way that is a little bit more integrated. This will take a few more months, but we are looking forward to rolling this out later. Also with the support of the Communications Director, Philip Bransford, and our 2 communications staff, Emily Roots and Hamid Al-Nassar, and an outside consultant, Espousal. We have been successful in several news outlets and earned media. Of course, most notable and substantial has been the front cover of the Oregonian several months ago. We've instituted a monthly external newsletter. We've expanded upon that, including a letter from the director, and we're focusing more on storytelling, especially with those who are receiving and going through our programs. We want to tell that story of how their lives have been changed through the work that we're doing. So we're illuminating the being human-centered in the work we're doing to pair that with a lot of the data-driven parts of our communication strategy as well. Okay, without further ado, I'm proud to unveil our new strategic framework with you today. These words and framing were shaped by many audiences from different forums, such as surveys, focus groups, advisory body dialogues, poster boards within our break rooms, and several executive team work sessions. We envision a Washington County where everyone has an affordable home with the supports and opportunities they need to thrive. And
Let's take an opportunity. Board members, is this a vision that is clear, aspirational, and matching of the values of the Housing Authority of Washington County and our One Washington County approach?
Yes. What,
Total thumbs up.
great, now I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
No. All of the balloons are rising up.
I appreciate the anywhere I see a vision that has the word opportunities, but it sends a message that abilities are nothing without opportunities. And we're going to give you that. So I appreciate you really working it out that to have an affordable home, you have to have the opportunities and the support to go along with that in your own journey, wherever you are, the social determinants of health and well-being.
So I wanted to make sure, I know you're sitting on the edge of your seat, thinking that there could perhaps be a shoe dropping, and there isn't, okay? Which is why I wanted to make sure, straight out of the gate, we're with you there, 100%.
Great. And to be clear, the Department of Housing Services creates pathways out of homelessness, promotes housing stability, and invests in affordable communities for Washington County and our residents. Whew. And I want to also elevate some key values that guide us in this work. We center racial equity and promote equitable access for all in an array of housing opportunities. We value responsiveness. We're committed to meeting the diverse needs of the community we serve and adapting our response to changing conditions. Collaboration. We work in partnership with the people we serve, other public agencies, nonprofit organizations, private businesses, and our neighbors. Accountability. We believe in transparency and being good stewards of public resources. And sustained impact. We take the long view through a commitment to deliberate, be strategic, and holistically sustainable approaches. Thank you for that. I'm now going to hand it over to Jess for our equity statement.
There are two additional important elements of our strategic framework. First, I'll begin with our equity statement. This equity statement was actually fully directed under the leadership of our Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Council, which is a staff-led group that is working, has been working for the last year and is continuing to work to help us advance equity as a department with our staff, for our staff, and through our work. And so in creating this strategic framework, we left it to them to help us draft an equity statement that aligns with the work they've been doing and are going to continue fostering through the department's work. So here is that statement with a lot of appreciation and gratitude for their work. To achieve our vision of a community where everyone has an affordable home with the supports and opportunities they need to thrive, we must work to advance racial equity. Communities of color have been systemically excluded from opportunities to own property, achieve financial security, and create generational wealth through centuries of racist and unjust policies and practices. Washington County residents also face barriers to housing because of other characteristics, such as immigration status, disability, and age. Eliminating these disparities requires that we address barriers that create inequities in housing opportunity while prioritizing services to populations disproportionately impacted by those disparities. We will deploy intentional strategies to advance racial equity while working to increase access to housing opportunities for all who face barriers to housing in our community.
Totally in line with the Board of Commissioners equity definition and statements as well. Board members, just checking in for a quick thumbs up before we keep going through the presentation. All thumbs up? Yes.
I'm a thumbs up, but I do have one tiny
Could you hold that
issue
until
with this,
the whole
but-
section, the whole open questions and comments?
Yeah, I can
Thank
do
you.
that.
Okay. Then the last final element for you today of our strategic framework are our strategic priorities. So the work in what the work that we will do under the guidance of our new mission and vision and values and equity statements. So that work includes fundamentally expanding housing opportunity through the creation of housing development, rental assistance, and home ownership opportunities. Working to create or support housing stability, helping those who are in homes be able to stay in their homes, and also helping create that stability by creating, to your point earlier, Commissioner Director Fye, opportunities to greater, or pathways to greater opportunities like employment opportunities and educational opportunities. Number 3, prevent and address homelessness. So you hear this all the time. You are our best messengers, but our work is to make homelessness rare and brief and non-recurring here in Washington County. Through that system of care, we are expanding. Number 4, preserving affordability. We have an important job to do to protect the housing that we already have regulated as affordable and keep it affordable. And that's going to be a big part of Jill and her team's job in coming years. More on that. Promote systems change, pursuing opportunities for policy improvements and system alignments to make our investments more strategic and equitable. We're doing that work with Medicaid, for example, right now. And then always and fundamentally advancing equity, promoting equity and racial justice by addressing barriers that create and perpetuate disparities in housing opportunities. So these priorities are meant to be evergreen, if you will, so that they continue to guide and help us reprioritize, because you know the work of housing justice is a shifting, continually expanding, and urgent body of work. And we're so grateful for the priorities that our funders and our partners beyond you all here in the county have put on housing, and that creates kind of like a changing landscape constantly. And so this framework is meant to guide that work as we continue to respond to new needs and new funding opportunities in our community. So that wraps up. Oh, actually, I'll pass it back to Molly to wrap it up.
This was really meant to be a pulse check, and hopefully we're getting thumbs up, and we'll come back to Commissioner Fye's sort of question, but just wanted to elevate that a lot went into this work, but it is there are opportunities for us to think about how we're communicating with the community in a way that makes sense. So we're conscious of that, and we're working through what this means in terms of like rebranding and modernizing our, essentially our colors and our marketing, how this sort of comes together. So would love your input and love any questions you may have. Should we start with Commissioner Fye?
No.
Oh, no, sorry.
As presiding officer, I would first like to invite Michael Savaro, one of our at-large board members for the Housing Authority of Washington County, then turn it over to we elected board members. Commissioner Willie had some questions and comments, then Commissioner Fye, and then Board Member Treese, and then myself. So, Board Member Savaro.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all so much for the presentation, and it's great to see kind of the whole continuum in this space and kind of represented here. I think a lot of the work and kind of the prep, I've gotten a little bit of a glimpse in over the last year or so. So this was really great to kind of see it all in one place, see it on paper. I think just one of the areas that I would love for you all to expand on a little bit is, I love the focus on the lived experience piece. I think that's an area our industry has really been trying to move towards. I come from a background in behavioral health where I think the peer-delivered services movement kind of predated the housing system a little bit. And so this idea of like nothing about us without us, I think, is a really important concept that I see you leaning into all over here. I think one of the pieces of that that's always really important for governments to consider when we're implementing those types of strategies is how we're compensating folks that are actually giving us this advice. They're giving us amazing, insightful advice, right? Like, we pay contractors a lot of money for their insightful advice. I want to see that same value put on the people that are giving us their advice about how they lived in that shelter and what it was like when they were there, or how they moved out. So would love to make sure that we're thinking about that as a policy framework. I'm sure the county has existing frameworks for how we think about that for our volunteer workforce in these ways. So you didn't mention it today, but I'm sure it's already on your mind. Would just love to make sure that that's a piece of kind of how you're thinking about, all the different board structures, making sure that we're incorporating that feedback and compensating folks for their time. So thanks.
It's in our toolbox already, so our staff will get back to you on that specific item. Thank you. Director Willie.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to follow up again, large amount of growth and opportunity, but at the same time, pretty significant burden for the training and getting everybody on the same page and going the same direction. So I just wanted to comment. You can come back and tell me how all of that folds together with your committees, your subcommittees, and those things. So I'm going to show my age here a lot because I want you to go to the slide just before this one, the strategic priorities, and tell me how the symbol that you have for advancing equity really communicates that. Because remember, I'm a 60s guy, and this meant something different than equity. So how does that work?
Well, just to be clear, these are placeholder icons while we're working with our marketing consultant to figure out the right visuals for each of these and illustrations. So we will come back to you on how we will be enhancing or improving upon.
I love the rest of them. I thought they're very reflective of what we're trying to say there. Just the last one. So that's just my thoughts. You can say,
No.
get on.
I appreciate that.
It's a really good comment, and I'm glad that you contributed it, because we want to make sure we're working across the generations here in Washington County. So thank you.
Okay, I'm done.
Director Fye.
Thank you, Chair. Advancing equity and that sign, I'll just start my comments on that and say, power to the people is what that means.
You're not old enough.
But we must be thinking, right? Okay. But if we truly advance equity, people power, right? So that's how it is. But I'll go back, sidetrack on that one. I'll start with the strategic framework, the equity statement that you had. And one of the things when you were reading, Jess, by the way, thank you so much for your presentation. This is very enlightening work you've been doing. And I'm eager to support and go on that journey with you all to try to have a really greater impact, more impact than you've been having, because the last 3.5 years that I've been here, I've seen tremendous amount of positive change that you all facilitated in our county, and the hard conversation that went along with it to make those decisions and to make those change. Both hard on yourself and hard on the residents, and then really engage that robust conversations to say, I may not agree with you, but I do hear you, and here's where we can meet together, and here's where Washington County is moving. So I've witnessed all of that for you all, so thank you, and I'm with you 100% on this work. The framework, the strategic framework, when you were reading, one of the things I kept hearing was, and this is something that as a society, I think we're trying to change it, the framing of us versus them. And one of the things that you had in there right after the supports and opportunities was the word they. And that, when I read it over the weekend and last night, I kept coming back, am I being picky of this word? And am I being a bit more sensitive? So And I came back to it and said no, because I kept coming back to the idea of us versus them. So I would like to recommend to you all to change that. Instead of they, say people. The opportunities people need to thrive. I think it's just easily fixable, rather than having that idea of us versus them. We're working to help you. We're working together to help each other, right? So that was my only take on. The rest of the language, very well put together, very thoughtful, and it's an equity statement that I can stand behind with that one word change, definitely. And then the other questions, this is just my own edifications, and I apologize if I missed it, but I couldn't see in the materials you provided the equity, or not the equity, but the sort of the boards and committee members and the quantified numbers that you've offered. First board and committee says 5 to 15 members. And I didn't see any pictures. And then the next slide, which talks about the same boards and committee, but this one is specifically talking about the Homeless Solutions Advisory Council. You did say 10 to 15 members, and then you did show a picture of 10 members of that committee. So going back to the first committee, is it just 5 members and you can have up to 15? So you only have 5 members currently on that board or committee?
Thank you, Director Fye. The answer is yes, we have 5, and we are in the process of appointing 7 new members. So I think that's a wonderful suggestion to prepare a photograph of the new body once they are fully convened, so we can better represent that.
It's a new body, hence no picture yet.
Yeah. Yes, and then the 10 to 15 members, board members, are you intending to recruit 5 more members to complete the full roster?
Yes, my understanding is the initial slate of membership was 10, starting with the launch of the new body to kind of get settled, understand what are the areas of work and growth and representation that they would want to expand before recruiting another slate of members. So I think that we would be open to growing up to 15 without an explicit necessity to achieve an additional 5 members. So I think that that's work that the committee has been meeting, was it since around the beginning of the year? So we're right about the time where we're starting to have those conversations about an additional slate of members that we would bring forward to the board for final approval when we get there.
Thank you. And then my last question along those two, around the boards and committees. I love the idea of the lived experience, and I appreciate what you said in really centering the lived experience. One of the things that, the question I asked myself when I was reading this material is, what excites me about the lived experience? And I thought, this is really people who are bringing their whole self to this committee to really share their own experience, which has trauma involved, to relive and to re-experience. But then they're also bringing really solutions, because people who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. So then I thought, well, what do they get out of it? What incentives is built into this, especially if you're really bringing? So is there an opportunity or grants out there you can seek to bring some incentives to provide to the committee members, to give them, whether that is $50 gift card for gas and travel costs, or food, or Starbucks? Costs are increasing. Inflation is a real thing that's happening to everyone, whether you're homeless or not, or living in affordable housing or not. That's impacting everyone. So is there potential solutions you're thinking about building into incentives to give to the members that are participating in these committees?
Yes.
And that will be my last question.
Yes, I think simply put, the answer is yes, and there's a combination of ways in which you can approach that, both from a perspective of reducing barriers to participation, but also recognizing time contributed. And we're working with our colleagues in OEICE to create a standard approach in how we support people with lived experience to have full access and participation in our advisory work.
Thank you. That's all, Chair.
Director Treese.
Thank you. I'd like to thank my fellow board directors. The comment about lived experience, I think, is extremely valuable. Director Willie, I had the same reaction, and I don't know that I would have been brave enough to bring it up about the FIS, so thank you very much there. And Director Fye, your comment about the they versus people as a whole, I fully support that. The question that I have for you is, when I read this vision and the plan, I get excited, and I am so appreciative. How does your staff react to this? I think I know, but I'd like to hear it from you.
Well, this is the unveiling. So we will have a series of more launching and rolling out of this. But we had a couple sessions with all of our staff. And the feedback we got was, make sure the vision statement and mission statements are aligned and they fall one from another. Make it so you can roll off the tongue. Don't make it too, frankly, earlier versions were were longer, more like, and we're going to do all the strategies, all the things all the time. Like, nope, we're going to keep it more streamlined and focus on overarching goals and strategies. So they really did frame it. They really helped make those really key endpoint processes that helped with some key language. And then, of course, our advisory bodies as well. They reacted to the word thrive very positively, also opportunity. And we particularly brought in the word our residents, not just Washington County, the residents. So there were some intentionality aligned to some of the reactions you're having as well.
So I think what I'm hearing is that there is ownership and also a positive sense.
Yeah, indeed.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Those were terrific questions and comments, and I appreciate it. To my point earlier about improvement, let me start with this. I think this is fantastic work, and as always, I am very proud of your approach, your very inclusive approach, your listening approach, the intentionality, and the passion to continue to advance this work. I was quite puzzled as I prepared for today's meeting and reviewing the packet. I wondered, why is this topic here? I must have forgotten something or missed something. So I tried to solve that question myself. And I went to our website and found that I kept going from different places, and I tried approaching it from okay, I'm here serving as an elected official. How do I sort this out? Then how does a community member sort it out? And then I know we have different committees, so how do they sort it out? And what is underlying? Where do we have legislation, whether it's federal or state, that requires us to do things, let alone each of those enabling us to do something? So ultimately, through the information and your great presentation today, there are multiple reasons why we're here today. One is, first and foremost, letting our community know that we have some information that we want to continue to get your input and reaction on, and your upcoming listening session. So thank you. Additionally, that you have this commitment for expanded community engagement, not just with these listening sessions, but over the course of time, unveiling of the strategic framework. You made reference to the annual department work plan, all very good. So one of the questions I had in preparing was, gee, is there a document I should have read? And there's a presentation that you have, how you explained or brought to life certain parts was really phenomenal. So I'm fine with, here's the unveiling, here's an initial take, and you'll keep working the process. I'm not sure if you need or want us to take any formal action on any part of this, so please just let us know, right? Department work plans, that's all department stuff. But there are aspects of this where we have played a role to adopt, appoint members, so on and so forth. So the next steps are not clear to me yet. I think you figured out that trying to understand the system for housing and homeless services is hard. It's complicated. And so I would encourage you to just add one more slide to this, because I heard loud and clear, while the word new wasn't on the slide for the Resident Advisory Board, and I know another one of our board members, Caroline, has been serving on a resident committee before. There's a new evolution or a brand new committee or something going on there. But that slide didn't use the word new, though your words did, right? So there are these 3 committees, and for very good reasons, and some of what I learned, but I had to print the website stuff because I was like, okay, this one is the Homeless Solutions Council serves as our, I struggle with this explanation, so I always have to write it down, our Continuum of Care Board, and that satisfies Subtitle C of Title IV of the McKinney-Vento Bill, right? Mm-hmm. These are foundational facts that are important. So we need all 3 of these committees. There's interconnection there, but I need some illustration of that. You've also been doing phenomenal work with Moving to Work program, and I know that the Housing Advisory Committee has a role there as well with Hawk. So the ecosystem is still a little bit of a mystery to me, and that's what I need help with. I really think your approach that you're following already with the Solutions Council subcommittees and groups, both from a standpoint of required and best practices, is great. So thank you very much. Lastly, you mentioned the housing forum coming up in November, and I would like to offer at least my services to help with recruiting additional attendees, mayors and city councilors who really care about affordable housing and homelessness. Our PAB board, I think PAB still needs a more modern name, which derives from the Community Development Block Grants and the federal home funds. That whole ecosystem is still mind-boggling to me. But our governor has very aspirational goals and doesn't have a clear enough picture, in my mind, about how you all excel in engaging with and serving our community. Our state legislators are also longing for that. And I know our mayors and city councilors know we do really good stuff, but they don't always have a clear picture of how their interest, passion, and dollars from their own general fund help leverage into ours. So you've done a terrific job. I just need a little bit more glue here and there is really the extent of it. So please, bright shining faces, you've done terrific work here. And we are with you 100% every step of the way to keep going, just keep going, because this is changing lives and helping people thrive. So thank you very much for coming forward to us today.
Thank you.
All righty. So we're onward to our second public comment, public communication period of today's meeting. This is an opportunity, excuse me, for members of our community to come and share their thoughts with us on any topic of responsibility of the Housing Authority Board of Directors for up to 5 minutes an individual. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to do so?
We do, Director Harrington. We have Dale Feek, followed by Trish Babe. So if you guys want to join us, that would be fantastic.
Feel free to come on up to the table and join us as well. But we'll start with Mr. Feek, and we have already received your information from Clerk Moss electronically, so feel free to start right away.
Thank you, Chair Harrington and Presiding Officer. Director, Housing Authority, Michael Savara, and Commissioners. And I think you said, Director, something about us without us. Is that what you said? Yeah, something about us without us.
Nothing without us.
Oh.
Nothing about us without us.
Nothing about us without us. Nothing about us without us. I love it. Thank you. Yeah, you did receive it. I summarized it in the document you have in front of you. The main thing is say no to Forest Grove Data Center's petition. Please sign, all of you. You don't have to be a resident of Forest Grove. Why? And see below, and also see the document I sent you through email because it's more detailed. Extra tax revenue for town of Forest Grove? No. Job creation? No. Do they care about wildlife? No. How large are these buildings? Both buildings are 250 feet by 750 feet tall. There will be 20-foot landscape buffer, and the remaining field will be concrete. What about noise and pollution? Up to 80 decibels allowed in the application. What about property values? A manufacturing facility next door, a marijuana plant a block away, a 20-foot landscape barrier of arborvitae trees is not going to do anything to help the curb appeal. What about the residents of Forest Grove? Don't we, what'd you say, nothing about us without us? Don't we have a say? The city officials have the ability to make the entire town aware of. They chose not to. The city officials have the ability to hold a community meeting. They chose not to. How much water do data centers consume? Huge amounts. Forest Grove has a limited supply of water, especially since they okayed a huge amount to be used by to produce the extra pure hydrogen peroxide plant to be built, that was built in Forest Grove. And I testified against that. So what did they do? The city officials mailed out a handful of notices on Friday, turning a 2-day weekend deadline to an even shorter one for most people. They restricted notices to only those within the 300 feet of the proposed site, despite Crane Center Data Center, affecting the entire town. Many of the residents within 300 feet speak Spanish. No notice was sent out in Spanish. Rowan Green Data Center applied for a land use permit about 3 years ago, and they finally withdrew their application because Bonneville Power Corporation told the city of Forest Grove they could not provide the enormous amount of power to the site. Is this going to happen in the case for Crane Data Center? And Commissioner Willie, I appreciate you telling me that the county made a decision based upon the Roland Green Data Center, and you're going to get me information about that. I much
Already
appreciate
sent that to you, Dale. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm saying this sincerely. Remember, the presiding officer says don't make comments when I talk. Okay.
Same information I just gave you, Dale, so that's what I'm doing.
Okay, so thank you very much. Sincerely, on behalf of the group called Say No to Data Centers in Forest Grove, and they already have signs out. Now, I'm a facilitator. I'm not one of the 4 that made the deadline to make public comment, but I'm working with these 4 that did, and they will be submitting an appeal if the Planning Commission okays this, And if the planning commissions, it'll be appealed to the council, and if that goes, we'll go to the land board. This is very serious. And you noticed also that this email was sent to, not only to you, but the Housing Authority, that's who I'm speaking for now, to Melinda Wenzel, the mayor of Forest Grove and city councilors, and Steve Calloway, mayor of Hillsborough city councilors. And the city of Hillsborough really did a lot of stuff with data centers. They were using a huge amount of water and a huge amount of power, and that's going to increase the rate for everybody in water and power. So these data centers don't provide jobs. They use a lot of energy, and we got to take a look at what this internet's all about. Everybody having a thing instantly and relying upon all these data centers. We don't want it in Forest Grove. Now, I put a petition in the back. You don't have to be in Forest Grove. You can sign it. It's back there. I've already gotten signatures here. Okay? So take a look, see me, or sign it back there. 2, 1, 0. Thank you.
So for the sake of the Housing Authority Board of Directors, I believe the intersection between Mr. Feek's comments and what he has provided us in writing and the role of the Housing Authority Board of Directors is, as he has mentioned, the possibility that additional data centers in Forest Grove might increase the rates for electricity and water in the city of Forest Grove might possibly impact the low-income and middle-income residents for which the Housing Authority Board of Directors has programmed to help them thrive. So I believe, I'm not speaking for for Mr. Feek, but given that this is public comment relative to our role as the Housing Authority Board of Directors, I wanted to make sure that that was clear not only to all of us, but to our community members who might be listening or watching this meeting. Now, onward to you, Trish. I'm sorry I did not catch your last name.
Is this on? I don't know. Okay. My name is Trisha Raby. I'm with Raby Family Dentistry and a bunch of the dental and medical communities around the 5th, 6th, Sickle Dock area of Baseline. After hearing the presentation, I completely agree. They're working forward to doing so much more for this community, and I think it's a wonderful thing. However, I have been trying very hard with my group of people to figure out, where do we go? Where do we go for some help when they're going to put this 3-story building up for homeless and bring three times the amount of people in that they're already serving? That's what they hope to do. It is already decimating businesses over there. And this is in the heart of downtown. It's located less than 1 block away from a grade school where we're finding needles. We're finding, do we go to the housing and say, hey, is there a different location? One that's not right next to our children. We have one child get hit on a bicycle and we're raising all this money for new crosswalks, all of this. What's going to happen when these kids get the meth, the needles, everything? There's defecation, fornication, urination everywhere, all over those blocks right now. We're trying to make Hillsborough a better place. And is there some place, and that's what I'm asking you guys right now, who do I go to? Because I've been to the city of Hillsborough, I've been to Washington County, and they just keep going back and forth. Who do we go to talk about this? I mean, it's not saying don't build it, but maybe find a different site, someplace where our children aren't impacted so much. 2 grade schools within 2 blocks of this. It's not good. It's not good for our community. We're trying to take that Hanks parking lot, is what I heard, and make it a nice little Orenco station where there's businesses on the bottom, housing on the top. Who's really going to want to be there with all of that stuff going on right there? The footprint, too, was I don't know how they got the building permits for that, because there's every code that's supposed to be enforced, isn't. It's who do I go to? That's all I'm asking for right now, is a name. This is the first meeting I've come to for the planners. I've been to the city council meetings and all of that. We've had meetings with the mayor and Beach Pace, trying to work with the community, you know, but we're also part of the community. We kind of would like a little help working with us. So if you guys have a name, I would very much appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for sharing your input with us. You were correct that the actual building, zoning, permitting of the access center is in the downtown Hillsborough area, is within the city of Hillsborough, so that isn't something we enable. Our role as Washington County, not as the Housing Authority Board of Directors, but through the county's homeless program, has been to provide a grant to help support and evolve that access center and day center and make improvements. So thank you very much once again for sharing your thoughts and input and concerns with us. We appreciate it.
So there's no number, no anyone that we can talk to, that's just, you just provided the money to.
We provided some money, not all of the money. So thank you.
All right.
Clerk Moss, is there anyone else?
Yes, we have Ryan Vigneault.
Excuse us, we have some additional people who will be testifying. I'm sorry, Clerk Moss.
So this is Ryan Vigneault. Ryan?
Thank you, Ryan.
Honestly, I don't know how to pronounce my last name. Could be pronounced many different ways. Good morning, everybody. Today is August 6th, 11/23. My name is Ryan Tyler Vigneault. We all matter. Everyone shares the same air, and everyone lives on Earth and shares the same space. The abuse that I've endured going through the entire system, and nobody asked me to do this. I wasn't given a choice, but the accountability to account for people's abilities has been neglected. The negligence that protrudes on people's lives in square one, which is homelessness, that's what we're talking about, right? Has been neglected. The accountability for the staff, the management, the supervisors, the overall seers of the management of these facilities and programs and implemented places are failing. And they have allowed the people to not only continue to mistreat themselves, but they have neglected to hold themselves accountable for whatever reason. I cannot tell you. All I can tell you is that it's not okay. The attempts to keep my mouth shut have been astronomical. It's indescribable that every day I am threatened, harassed, and mistreated, and I can't report anything properly. I'm sent in 15 different directions by 15 different people, and nobody's on the same page. So to try and honorably say that the system is purposefully set up to use and abuse people so someone can profit off of it is unheard of. But it's happening. And it's destroying not only lives, but our world. And we all matter. So I wonder, where is the help? I have bent over backwards and kept myself from working, and everybody wants to worry about me and my safety, yet I'm not being allowed or advised to speak out like I am right now. And it's taken me my entire life to prepare for this. I just got a call from a cemetery before I spoke in here. I missed that call. So the privacy invasions of my life and every day and the harassment and negligence are so indescribable that it's not okay. Who wants to be held accountable? I'm sitting here and I don't know what to say. I have been kept from making money. Nobody wants to hire somebody that's being harassed and threatened and followed. I have worked my butt off to try to hold people accountable and do a better job, only to relapse. And then to be threatened that if I said anything, something would happen to me. Well, I'm still here saying something. It's not okay. It's destroying our home. And we all share the same home, Earth. I encourage you to make better choices and decisions. And if you guys are implementing money to programs, to have them better ran. I empower you. Power is not to be controlled. It's POWER. Prisoners of war, we are right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Clerk Moss.
That concludes in the room. I do not see any other hands. Would anyone else like, ma'am? Yes, please come up and state your name for the record.
My name is Cynthia Rao.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I would say each one of your names. I'm fairly nervous, so pardon me.
Talk to us.
Okay, so living in Clackamas County, I've waited 7.5 years to come here out of 10. I believe that the racism has ended, and I'm saying that with the discrepancies of discrimination. And where that lies is that I've noticed and this is from being on the street for 3 years, from northeast to southeast to southwest to southeast, and everything in between that I might be forgetting right now. People with all the federal grants that have been given by Mr. President Joseph Biden Jr., everything that has been spread out. I've noticed I've lived on disability with kids. We've had no support. It's not my family's responsibility to pick up pieces from others. However, when I'm seeing that people are not getting paid the price for the dues in the criminal justice system, it's because others might be timid on doing so. The idea that could turn into a law I'm trying to pass and put out there that I'm wanting to have the authority to be able to, for all the illegal break-in and enterings up to 20 times a year for 7 years, for these people not to pay the price and consequences for what's due to them, makes it a higher platter of a pedestal for them to be able to repeat, orchestrate more to get involved. And it leaves me as Ukrainian and Russian and Irish. We're not even on the housing list. As a matter of fact, I've bounced around 44 times, done every housing assessment there is. And I know that it's not our justice system. To me, I was held barriers from my own LLC. Somebody had ruined my website because they have not been made to serve their consequences for the damages done. It has put, and if it happened to 20 other families, I'm the only one that had a bank account closed from Wells Fargo and with loyalty with my mom out of 80-something years because they didn't pay the consequences. If it happened to 20 other single moms with disabilities, you're making the victim not be able to have victory, and because of threats to people's lives. And for a single woman, men don't like it when you use self-defense. And I care about me and my kids' life. But when it came to 28 times of having to move and getting kicked out of a shelter because of a man who strangled 2 white women and 1 Hispanic, got 6 months jail time. And on top of everything else, I would be saying to the world and the nation that every 3 women that get strangled, I had an 1.5 inch thick of a ring around my neck. That's just the beginning of what I was trying to do good and thinking someone was homeless and giving them a place, because I had a 3-bedroom that I waited 15 years on a waiting list for and lost it in a 1.5 years, only to have affiliation in another state and then come back. And so without giving you all of my personal story, I'm really working hard and need to know who I can have help. Give me the authority for warranting, surveillances. People get offended when you give them fed time. Well, I don't like it when our medical field and our doctors are getting their license ruined because they want to take a script. Okay, I'll be that person to go to the federal courtroom and make sure they get fed time. So I push that, so I'm getting retaliated against. You know, my kids were both born women, right? Girls, and I missed every change of my kids' life. White men can get away with holding a gun to your head and holding a barricade, and you don't get justice for it. Look, I can put all that aside, but my kids were off limits. My kids were off limits. We've all been affected at the same age. For the lack of housing and me being on the street, I've seen more squatters in every house. My website got ruined from my LLC. It's because they were enabled to continue their hate no matter the shade, because it's only skin deep. And without me being able to see surveillance, without me being able to warrant for drug court, if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, you know, it enables people. When you're enabling them at the shelters, what you're doing is you're giving them a hot meal, and then they're able to go out there and go out and reuse again, and then just repeat cycle. It's like being in a marriage. When we fight, it's a repetitious circle, and a couple, making it short, because I'm supposed to be over with right now, I really need to know who I can have to have a little bit more authority in our community. People think because I was on medication or whatever the case, I was in special ed, you know, doesn't mean I didn't get 3.9 in college, right? So I've been prevented from schooling 6 times, housing 11 times, and I worked hard. But I need authority in the communities, because you have people that warrants have been working their butts off, and you have people that have not tried at all and still have not gotten a W-2 since 17. Well, you have me trying. So if you could give me some advice, it would be grateful and appreciative.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us today and your comments. I hear your question loud and clear for a request for who can you see to get more authority in our communities. I don't have an answer for you today. If you provide Clerk Moss with your name and contact information, I will do my best to get back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I'm staying at the Willamette Shelter currently, just sorry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone else?
Don't see anyone else in the room. Would any member online wish to provide comment for the Housing Authority up to 5 minutes? Give you just a moment to utilize raise hand function. Not seeing any hands. Director Harrington.
All right, thank you, Clerk Moss. That brings us to the end of our second public comment period for today. Are there any Board of Director announcements that any of you wish to share? Nope, seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn today's meeting of the Housing Authority Board of Directors.
Okay. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, directors. Anyone opposed? The motion carries 5-0. And in just a moment, we will shift over to our Washington County Board of Commissioners meeting. Thank you. Oh, cameras, everyone.
Right. Welcome back, Commissioners, and over to you, Chair Harrington, for call to order.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the August 6th, 2024 Washington County Board of Commissioners meeting. Clerk Moss, could you do us the honors, please?
Certainly, Chair Harrington. The Washington County Board of Commissioners, also meeting as the Board of Directors for Clean Water Services and all other county service districts, meeting this regular session, August 6, 2024. Commissioner Treese?
Here.
Commissioner Willie?
Here.
Vice Chair Fye?
Present.
Chair Harrington? And
Here.
I'll announce Commissioner Rogers is excused.
Yes, Commissioner Rogers is away on vacation. We'll see him later in the month. All righty. Next, we have our first public communication session for today's Washington County Board of Commissioners meeting. This is an opportunity for members of our community to come and address the Board of Commissioners for up to 2 minutes per individual. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to do so?
Thank you, Chair Harrington. I did not see anyone sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Would anyone in the auditorium wish to provide public comment for up to 2 minutes? Ryan? 5 minutes is at the end if you want it. Okay. All right. Not seeing anyone in the room. Would any member online via Zoom wish to provide comment for up to 2 minutes on any county-related topic? Not seeing any hands, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Next, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Today's consent agenda consists of 14 items, 2 sets of meeting minutes, 4 items from Clean Water Services, 1 item from Health and Human Services, 1 item from Human Resources, 2 items from Facilities, Fleet, and Parks, and 4 items from Land Use and Transportation. What are the wishes of the Commission regarding today's consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt today's consent agenda. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. Next, we'll move on to our second public communications session of today's meeting. This is an opportunity for members of our community to come and share their thoughts with the Board of Commissioners on any topic of concern here in Washington County. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to do so?
We do, Madam Chair. We have Dale Feek, followed by Ryan Vinier. So, Mr. Feek, you can both join at the table if you'd like.
Ryan, since you're ready, why don't you go ahead first?
Again, my name is Ryan Tyler Vigneault. August 6th, counting threw away my glasses, so it looks to be about noon.
Yep, it's 11:42.
Okay. As I stated earlier, the negligence and harassment that I've endured to go through this entire process and a falsification of my medical characteristics and being sent to a state hospital, wrongfully arrested, which I had been reporting a lot of strange things for many months prior to that, from domestic violence to threatening things protruding in my life. Nothing changed. And for me to have to go through that just to get here and carry around all the evidence is pretty sickening. It's inhumane. And then when I did seek help through either doctors, hospitals, counselors, therapists, psychiatrists, I didn't get any good help. I got neglected. Then having to not have a home and even going into the Housing Authority building and they don't know who I am, to have gone to so many different programs implemented to help, but yet every single one of those, which I have evidence of, stated something different. So there's been a breach of my privacy and my falsified medical records, and there's been thefts from the police and neglect from me trying to report from the police. Where does it stop? It's pretty sickening to set people up to be a failure and then to point fingers at them and steal from them. And like I said earlier, the accountability that is not being accounted for is being allowed. And so when someone mistreats themselves or continues to drink or use drugs or whatever that is, and to do that publicly and not in the privacy of your own home, and then to be neglected your own home for discriminating reasons or whatever reasons that the people have at that moment, because we're all people and we all matter, but some people are profiting off of it and being paid to do a job that they are purposefully neglecting is not okay. I was referred to shelters, and when I got there, they didn't know who I was. And then I was accused of stealing something, or I was got somewhere, and like I said, they didn't know who I was. And they didn't have any documentation or anything about me being referred to that shelter. And then when I, in the attendance of a shelter, it hasn't really given me the chance to speak out about what we need. So how can we better ourselves if we're being mistreated, neglected, and not heard? And then when I try to speak out, going all the way to the tippy top, it's not heard. Nobody shows up and says, hey, let's discuss some things. Again, how can I go work if my things are being stolen? How can I go get a lawyer if I'm not being paid and I can't go get a job to make any money just to pay the lawyer or consultation for 20 to 30 minutes from even a church? I called every different attorney I could that was listed in the county jail, and they all laughed at me as I was mistreated and feces poured into one of my cells for 3 days from the next room, or I had my cell door opened by a deputy at 3 o'clock in the morning threatening to send me to the MOU, which is the medical ward, because, well, he was mistreating me and I said something. Is that how we treat people? If anybody was in my shoes, and I don't care about, not to say I don't care about, because I love kids and I love people, but what people want to do behind closed doors in a safe manner is not for me to say. But to publicly mistreat them and set them up to fail is a failure in the system, and it needs to be worked out. I don't know how that is going to be worked out, because every day, even me trying to come here this morning, I've gotten just nothing but misinformation. By the grace of God, I've made it here, and hopefully that I can live afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan, for providing your comments and thoughts with us today, both at the board, here at the Board of Commissioners, as well as at the Housing Authority Board of Directors. Thank you. Yeah. Mr. Feek.
Madam Chair Harrington, Commissioners. Hi.
Go ahead.
I'm Dale
Clock
Feek,
is on.
Chair of the Washington County Citizen Action Network. I empathize with your statements. I hope you've connected with the sheriff. I hope that the housing department staff will get a hold of you and make contact with you and try to help you with your needs and your wants, because they're very serious, and it won't be an easy thing to have you resolve, but there are people in this county that are dedicated to do that, so good luck, okay?
Mr. Feek?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
That was a phone call just a little bit.
Wait a minute, I'm doing my public comment now. I'm sorry, you can't interrupt me on that.
That was a threat.
I'm sorry, pardon?
That was a threat.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to help you. My
you.
public comment.
Thank
okay?
you.
I have 3 things I want to talk about. First of all, I want to talk about the cooperative library services in Washington County. And you, as Board of Commissioners, oversee the cooperative library. My 6- and 9-year-old granddaughters had a great time in the last couple times. Well, because we've gone to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 libraries in the cooperative system. And just like you, Chair Harrington, I'm starting to know the county more. You are the overall chair, knows what's going on in the county. My granddaughters are going to know what this county is about, because we're going to all 16 libraries. And they're getting their stickers and putting it on here. And they're also checking out books. And if you check out a book from one of these others, you can just turn it in any library and it'll go right back to that library. It's cool. So they've already checked out books from different libraries besides Hillsborough Brookwood Library, which they go to regularly. That's one. Number 2, I've already talked with you about the data centers in Forest Grove, one that was proposed and withdrew, another one that's now active and received an okay with the city. And I don't know how to do this, because we have made different audiences that listen to this. And I know people that watch this and they don't come to the meetings. even staff people. I just know they do. Hey, Dale, I saw you on, okay, whatever. So it is broadcast and it is recorded and people understand, they know how to get the information. So now, are they going to go to the Housing Authority and listen to me speak? I doubt it. Do I need to repeat what I said before? I imagine. Do I have time to do it in 2 minutes and 32 seconds? Maybe. Let's see what happens. Remember, I have 3 points. I want to make sure I get my third point in. But say no to Forest Grove Data Center's petition. Please sign. I put it in the back. Anybody still here, you can sign it back there. And why? Extra tax revenue for the town of Forest Grove? No. Job creation? No. Do they care about wildlife? No. How large are these buildings? You can read it. What about noise? 80 decibels. What about our property values? It's going to hurt them. How much water data center needs? Huge, huge. How much electricity? Power, power, power. And they couldn't get the application, the form of them, because Bonneville couldn't get the power to them. I'm summarizing what I said before, but. Okay, and then the big deal is equity, social equity. I was chair of the Standing Stability Commission in Forest Grove. We had a big part on there, social equity and injustice, environmental injustice, right? And so Spanish people there, justice, and I'm glad people are going to address that. All right, so in conclusion, say no to data centers in Forest Grove, sign the petition. Your elected leaders, hopefully it'll help you stay elected. Maybe if you don't sign it, I imagine you'll still stay elected. I'm for you anyway, because I like all 5 of you. I doubt if you're listening, Commissioner Rogers, but anyway, maybe you look at the recording. Third point. And I sent this to you also. During my July 16th, 2024 hearing testimony about North Plains urban growth boundary, I did not make it clear. I stumbled. I'm a former Toastmaster, but I just mumbled my words. What I meant about North Plains not being required to submit an economic plan when Todd Borkowitz, senior county planner, made the opposite statement. The attached story published in the Forest Grove Hillsborough News Times states, when North Plains first pursued plans for residential development, the city cited how the state requires cities to plan use for 20 years in the future. But the Department of Land Conservation and Development recently clarified that cities with populations below 10,000 are not required to update comprehensive plans regularly. Portland State University estimated that North Plains had a population of 3,663 in 2023. That was a factual wrong, and it guided the planning department in a lot of their statements. 8, 7. Well, thank you for listening. I've learned to stay within my time, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Feek. We do have the written material that you provided to us in addition. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone else who wishes to address us during this time?
Yes, Cynthia, please come forward.
My name's Cynthia Rao, and
I'm sorry, could you sit down?
Sorry.
State your name, and then we'll start the timer. Don't worry, don't be rushed.
okay. My name's Cynthia Rao. Thank you to the committee commissioners and vice chair. And I don't know what first row is to answer you. I'm sorry. So I wanted to say that as I was entering the shelters and whatnot, I think it's a huge deal that when our electricity is being used, that they are aware of leaving it on when nobody's occupying the room. There's time frames that PG&E has that is less time consuming to have things on throughout the day. I think it's in the evening between 5 and 9 to run like your, washing machine or even the air conditioner, and to be a little bit more tight. And after a year of being on the street or even in a shelter, I would suggest that maybe perhaps that they have a timeline to have goals and their priorities in check so that they can plan for a better future. And for the communities around them, I think that if legalizing every 20 miles or even perhaps 15, legalizing a certain spot federally and state, to have a marijuana smoking, because with marijuana, I've never seen an argument in all of my 36 years of use, up to 150 a day. And I've not ever used an excuse. You have the abilities or you don't, you have the goals or they're not there. And I feel that alcohol and, if you don't have self-control or illegal narcotics, you're always going to see a fight, and it's going to be a repetitious circle. And to enable that, I think, is harmful to the communities around us. Thus, there's so much crime activity and everything else involved. Marijuana, you don't ever see these types of arguments. I know that federally it's not legal. Statewide, I feel that if there's maybe every 15 to 20 miles, there's a designated spot for individuals, they probably would go out of their way to do it as opposed to doing it next to the schools and doing it in communities where they really are against it. Because for cancer patients like me, you don't have the abilities to have a place to call home because for the last 3 years we're fighting for one. And so I'm just wanting to throw that out there for or they could do reentry to Central City Concern if the timeline can't be met for the goals that they need to have, because otherwise we're enabling instead of using tough love. And it's important because it's important. And to go back to the racism and to the discrimination, there is maybe what I've noticed, maybe about 4% or 5-6%, but it's much higher for the discrimination. It is, I would put at least 75 to 80% of discrimination. And it is against the transgenders. It is against people that I've realized I'm the only Ukrainian or Irish, but they're holding a lot more against me at this point, so which is why I'm asking for authority of some sort. There is people that hang out with a certain group of people, whether it be for any type of reason, whether they be skinheads out of prison or whatever the case might be. But the racism I've not seen as much, but discrimination is highly out there. And there are words that people expect you to read between the lines is when you're walking away. Things are being said, hurting people's feelings. When that adds up, people could get a TIA like myself, and it's not okay to do that because they don't have a place to go. There are kids that are out there suicidal, and it scares me to death because when I don't have my kid in my presence and my kid's going through changes, and the nouns and pronouns have changed from she, her to he, him, I'm cool with that all day. I'm a liberal mom that no discrimination. I've never raised my kids that way. I've never worked for Maurice Lucas that way, never worked for Dark Horse Comics that way, and I've never, no matter statewide, but when I checked out Minneapolis, and there's 20% has moved, and they were able to move here in a lump sum and get housing and afford nice cars. How can they afford Section 8? I'm taking a poll. I'm not just digging in. If I'm not 51% sure, then I can't pass a lie detector test. And federally speaking, it's not a global change. It's a platform happy thing that people are getting on. And it's because they're all friends together that have all been friends together. And a lot of people don't know that a lot of people came literally from our home state. They're just... the more they build up and the more pedestals that they get, the higher they are. Women don't have rights. They're not able to succeed with their businesses. They're knocking women down so that women don't have a voice. And when I have one, they get offended because my coach always taught me in ice skating, when you have a target, you need to aim for it. And when you have goals, you need to go for it. And women in their businesses are being knocked down all the time to where I couldn't even run mine, to where, so I'm putting that out there because it goes hand in hand when it comes to our community and our environment as well.
Thank you for sharing
Right,
your thoughts
thank you.
with us today, both here at the Board of
Thank you for your time
Commissioners
today.
and the Housing Authority Board of Directors.
Thank you to all of you. I'm going to go to surgery now.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
thank
for your
you.
time.
Clerk Moss.
I did not see anyone else in the room. Any other people in the auditorium wish to have public comments? Raise your hand, start coming forward. Not seeing any in the room. Would any member online via Zoom wish to provide public comment for up to 5 minutes on any county-related topic? Give you just a moment to utilize raise hand function. Not seeing any hands. Chair Harrington.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Next, we'll move on to board announcements, and I'll do the usual announcement of upcoming meetings. We will not be having any board meetings next Tuesday, August 13th. Our next set of meetings will be on Tuesday, August 20th. We'll start just like today with our work session at 9 a.m. Then we'll pause that, then convene for our Board of Commissioners meeting at 10 a.m., and then we'll reconvene our work session subsequently. On the last Tuesday of the month, Tuesday, August 27th, we'll have a work session in the afternoon starting at either 1 p.m. or 2 p.m., and then a board meeting in the evening starting at 6:30. Then we're into the month of September already, and after the Labor Day holiday, the very beginning of September, we will have a set of meetings on Tuesday, September 3rd, work session starting at 9, pausing that till later after the board meeting at 10 a.m. Then on Tuesday, September 10th, we'll have just a set of work sessions that day. I'm sure it will be busy. And then on Thursday, September 12th, we will have our board roundtable starting at 9 a.m. Are there any other announcements from the Board of Commissioners today?
Just that the hops groundbreaking is this Thursday at 3:30 out at the stadium.
Yes, and we will be, after we adjourn this meeting, reconvening back in work session after a 5-minute break. So at this juncture, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn today's Board of Commissioners meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. We are hereby adjourned.